Hello everyone, it's me Sarah. Welcome to my channel, A Curious Cuttlefish. Today is day 2 of our cotton yarn dyeing adventure. Hello everyone, and welcome to day 2 of dyeing cotton yarn. So yesterday I showed you how I prepared the yarn into cakes, hanks, and even just the ball that it comes in. And so today I'm going to be showing you how it looks like when we dye those yarns. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be dyeing these yarns with some RIT dye. So let me show you that before we get started. And these are open. I am using RIT Dye's Denim Blue, and I also have a RIT Dye Eggplant. And I have used these before, that's why there's some discoloration here. This is why I advise you wear gloves, because sometimes a little bit of it will spill out, and when it's wet it can dye your hands this color. But these are the two main colors that I will be using to dye the cotton yarns today. I can have links for these beneath in the description. I am not affiliated with any of this. These are just products that I have purchased with my own money and how I dye my cotton yarns. I will also be adding a little bit of black food coloring. This is one that I got from my local dollar store, and I will just be showing you how food coloring doesn't really adhere to cotton as well as the RIT dyes, so I will be putting some of this in the yarn bases that we will be dyeing today, but I can almost guarantee you it won't show up as well as the two RIT dyes, but it'll just be a good example for you so you can see the difference that it has there. And let's see what else. Remember, when you are dyeing, to wear an apron and gloves or something to protect your clothing and hands. I also like to cover the surfaces that I am putting my plastic cups of dye on. I cover that with plastic wrap or with some old newspaper, something so that you do not get dye on your surfaces of your kitchen or wherever you happen to be dyeing your yarn. And I believe that those are the main things. I do use disposable plastic cups. I use a Sharpie to write the names of the colors on them. And in preparing my dyes for today, I typically use about half a teaspoon of the RIT dye to half a cup of water, and I have that cup of dye then ready and prepared for how I plan to dye the yarns. So I hope that you enjoy this process. Let me move my camera over to my stove where I will be dyeing the yarns. I pre-soaked my yarn for 1 hour, and we are also using salt to create our dye bath solution. So let me move you over there and we shall continue. Alright everyone, so right here I have my yarn that I have been soaking for the past hour, and I'm going to just turn this camera right over here. This is where we're going to be dyeing the yarn. So let me show you how I am preparing this. I have some iodized salt right here. I am going to put about 3 teaspoons, which equates to 1 tablespoon of salt to prepare my dye bath. There we go, the salt is added. And as you can see, it is already at pretty close to a boil. So I need to turn this heat down, and I am going to add a splash of vinegar. So let me just get this heat turned down a bit. Alright. Here's our vinegar. I'm just going to add a splash of it in here. And alrighty. So all the equipment I'm about to use is only for dyeing. I do not mix my food items with my dye items. I feel like this bath is still a bit deep, so I'm actually gonna take out about a cup of liquid here. I want it to just barely cover my cake. So I showed you the yarn that we are going to be dyeing. So the colors that I have, we have a deep purple, a denim blue, and I am using black food coloring just to show you guys how the food coloring won't adhere to the cotton as well as the RIT dyes will. So let me just move these over. We are going to start off by pouring this purple all in here. Now I am keeping a little bit of this dye back on the side because I'm going to be showing you just different techniques for dyeing your yarn. Yes, these are all prepared differently, but you will see that they will soak up the color and get different patterns. So here is the yarn left as is. I'm just going to place that right in here. We're going to let that sit. We will also put the yarn cake next. I'm going to put that one right here. Here's the skein of yarn that I have left hanged. And I feel like I'm going to have to take out more liquid because I didn't account for the displacement. And finally, here is the way that I like to use or do my dyeing, is like this. So you know that I like dip dyeing. I am actually going to try to get a slight gradient by holding this in the dye bath for a bit, letting it sit like that, and then every few seconds just adding in another portion of the yarn. By doing this, we're going to get darker on one end and lighter on the other. So this eggplant color is coming up very pink to me, in my opinion, but see how it turns out. Alright, so I'm just gonna let this sit and cook for probably about 15 minutes, and then I'll bring you guys back and show you how much color has absorbed, and we'll introduce the second color. Okay, so I actually let this sit for 30 minutes. I was trying to clear the water. As you can see, it's not all the way clear. And I had pulled out, this is still hot. I need to put on gloves. Okay, let me put on my gloves. That's what happens when you walk away, work on other things, and need to come back. Alright, so I had removed this hank of yarn right here. And so this had been sitting in there, and now before I add the other color, I am going to undo, so you can even see right here, it is white on all the areas that were inside and covered. So I am going to let this unravel just a bit, just like that. So if you can see this yarn right here, there is almost like a nice speckle to it. So I am just going to readjust so I can re-hank up this yarn, and it is warm, makes it a little bit more difficult. It is getting in there. Okay. So I have readjusted, re-hanked. Look at those beautiful colors that we got right in here. This was just from me re-skeining, or re-hanking, I should say. So if you wanted to stop here in the process, all you do is you just dye it when it's in this hanked form, and this is how it looks after that. But we are going to be adding 2 more colors to this. So I'm just going to take this and drop this right back into the dye bath, and we are going to go add some blue, or I should say denim. And I should make a note that I do keep all of my plastic cups. I write dyeing on them, and I have the color, which is covered by the dye in this cup right now, but I have what color this cup is for, and I save all my plastic cups, and I just reuse them every time I dye. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to apply the color on these. They're going to be slightly different for each one. So these ones, I am going to pour the dye right into the center. I'll let that sit a bit. So the hope is here that we will have some of the yarn getting more of the dye, and then the outside staying this nice purple color. I'm going to do this on both the cake and the original skein. It's a little harder with this wrapped up skein. Typically I would want to just add it into a pot that is completely filled with this denim color. But because I do not have that, I mean I could, but I want to dye these all together and show you guys the difference. So I'm just adding a bit here and there. You can see the dye is more here. It's slowly making its way and traveling out to that point. It looks like it has absorbed a lot in these two, so I'm going to add a little bit more to this one. Wait for that to absorb. turn this one up front so that I can get some more of this navy on this bottom portion here. And after I finish applying these colors, I'm just going to let this sit and cook for another 30 minutes. Okay, and now with this little bit here, I'm just going to drop in portions on my hank. And if you've watched my dye videos before, you know that I enjoy using this process for dyeing. So there's the remainder of that. I am also going to do some drops of the darker eggplant color onto this one. And now I am going to let this sit and cook for another 30 minutes. And we'll wait till the dye bath. As you can see, it's very dark. It's not very clear. I want to wait until the water starts to clear before I add my third and final color. So I'll bring you guys back in a bit. And it should be noted, with cotton, it takes a very long time for these colors to absorb. And so sometimes you have to wait longer. Other times I do add extra hank of some wool to absorb up any colors that have not been absorbed yet, just so that I can move on to the next color. So if you see right here in this pan, there is a little bit of yarn. This is some wool that I had pulled to pull a little bit more color out of the dye bath so I can add the navy. So chances are after 30 minutes there will still be a decent amount of dye in this pan, and so I will be adding this in to let it absorb any extra dye so that I can add that final color. So I will see you guys in another 30 minutes. Alrighty everyone, so it has been another 30 minutes, and as you can see, the water has cleared up significantly, and so I am going to add the last color into here. And I apologize for the glare happening right now. It is morning and a lot of sunlight comes in through my kitchen windows. So, alright, this last color here, this is the food coloring. This is the black food coloring that I added to half a cup of water. I did this with all of the dyes that I added to this particular pan. I mixed the dye, approximately half a teaspoon of dye with half a cup of water, and that's how I get the dye that I will be adding. So I flipped my the starting skein and the cake, I flipped them over. I am going to add this to the center of those. So we're just gonna let that sit and absorb into these. I'm curious to see how much of this is actually going to stay in and how much of this will wash out, because this is a different brand food coloring than the one that I usually use. I got this one from the dollar store, and in most cases when I use food coloring, it ends up washing out when... Alrighty everyone, so unfortunately my camera battery died when I was recording that last bit of pouring the black dye into the cotton yarn, and so I continued to talk and just add that black dye and then sit and wait for 15 to 30 minutes as I did with all the other ones, without realizing that my camera battery had died and it didn't get all that footage. So I apologize for that, but that is all that really transpired at the end. I waited for about 30 minutes and the water had started to clear up. I added in a skein of wool to soak up any remaining color because I don't like to waste any dye. I understand that this is not something everyone can do because wool and other fibers are expensive, and so I just have some extra on hand for whenever I'm dyeing, and I just have a surprise extra skein that is just used for soaking up extra dye because I don't like to waste dye. Understandable if you guys are unable to do this. I'm just letting you know that that is what you will see tomorrow when I am washing and drying the yarn. There will be extra in there because I used it to soak up extra dye that was left over. And so after I let it sit there and simmer for another 30 minutes, it is typical to just turn off the stove. I left everything inside the pan and I am letting it come down to room temperature, however long that takes. I think that by tonight I'll be able to take it out and wash it, but I will probably be recording washing it and hanging it up to dry tonight and editing that video tomorrow. So you'll see that process tomorrow, and all of tomorrow will be it just drying. So I am hoping, because it is warmer, that by Friday I will have some dried yarn to show you guys. But again, you know, it depends on how long it takes for that yarn to dry for me to show you guys the completed project or product. And I will be showing you guys how I prep that yarn, because the ones in the cake and the one in the little ball, how the yarn comes when it's sold to me or when I purchased it, I actually like to hank those up because then it dries much easier. I know some people will let it stay as a cake and dry as a cake, but I noticed that it takes another couple days because it's not as open to the air, so it doesn't dry as quickly. So that's what I will be doing. I will be showing you guys tomorrow the washing process as well as it on the drying rack, and then you will be able to see the completed yarn, fingers crossed, on Friday, and if not, on Saturday. So thank you so much for joining me for this little yarn dyeing adventure. This is day 2. I will be back tomorrow with day 3, and I hope that you're enjoying, and have a wonderful rest of your day.